The Super Bowl is on Sunday, and this year, many fans are going to have their eyes on the stands instead of the field. And they'll all be hoping to catch a glimpse of pop superstar Taylor Swift. She is, of course, dating Kansas City Chiefs tight end Travis Kelce. But Swift's potential presence at the football event has stirred up some bad blood for the far right. Swift finds herself starring as the anti-hero in a political media frenzy riddled with conspiracies.
We have had enough of Taylor Swift for now.
She shouldn't be liberal. She should be a total conservative, given everything.
The Pentagon PSYOP unit pitched NATO on turning Taylor Swift into an asset.
Yesterday, she flew private from New York City to Baltimore. Yet she constantly talks about climate change. So just please don't believe everything Taylor Swift says. We're all begging you.
Don't get involved. Don't get involved in politics. We don't want to see you there.
So, some Republicans are going after Swift, saying she's part of an elaborate plan to boost Joe Biden's chances in the 2024 U.S. presidential election. So why is the GOP waging a war against Taylor Swift, and is this effort potentially going to backfire on them? Brian Donovan is a University of Kansas professor who teaches a popular college course called The Sociology of Taylor Swift. And Brandon Valeriano is a political scientist at Seton Hall University's School of Diplomacy, and they join me now. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me.
Glad to be here.
I want to declare a conflict and a bias right up front that I will be cheering against Taylor Swift this weekend, not because of anything she did, but I am a San Francisco 49ers fan, have been my whole life, so that puts me on the wrong side of at least the game on Sunday, Brian, and I know you're in Kansas, so I don't know how you feel about the Chiefs. But let's start with this situation where an international pop sensation who's suddenly been dragged not just into the Super Bowl spotlight, but the political spotlight in the United States. I mean, how did it get there?
I think Taylor's been silent about her political views recently, and the right has decided to make her culture war fodder. I don't think it's going to end well for them. I don't think this is a good political strategy. But the last week they decided to target her, I think because she's just been in the conversation so much. Everyone's talking about her, so they thought we'll talk about her too.
So Brandon, the Republicans seem pretty worried, particularly worried, or at least irritated maybe. They're launching some pretty out there attacks against Taylor Swift. What do you think is fueling this kind of reaction from the GOP?
And this is a politics of blame, basically. The concern is the Republican Party has done horribly against young voters and women voters. So they're really worried about losing that demographic. And Taylor Swift really speaks to that demographic. So in some ways, they're preemptively blaming a possible person who's responsible for their predicament. But their predicament is of their own making, basically.
Okay, so Brandon, just stay with you on that. So if you already have a problem with young voters, and you especially have a problem with young women, why are you going after perhaps the avatar, the icon who speaks to more young women in America than anybody else? What's the upside of that?
It doesn't really make sense. And that's kind of a through line for a lot of right politics in the United States right now, that a lot of it strategically doesn't make sense. It's not going to help. It's not going to attract any voters. And if anything, like I said, it's just someone that they can blame when their failures come home to roost.
Brian, do you see this as giving Republicans someone to blame, or they may be creating their own problem by provoking the Swifties, because they are a loyal, motivated legion?
The Swifties are the most intense fan base on the planet, and I see this as political folly. They are genuinely concerned, I think, that she will endorse Joe Biden and maybe make a public appearance with him. But I think attacking the most popular celebrity on earth right now is not a winning strategy.
Okay, so Brian, just to stick with you, it's not just criticizing her. There's conspiracy theories that she's a government psyop acting on behalf of Democrats, and the Super Bowl is rigged, I hope not, to further this agenda. And we even had former Republican candidate Vivek Ramaswamy. He tweeted last week, he said, "I wonder who's going to win the Super Bowl next month, and I wonder if there's a major presidential endorsement coming from an artificially, culturally propped up couple this fall. Just some wild speculation over here. Let's see how it ages over the next 8 months." Brian, what do you make of things like that?
I think what's happening is that we're seeing some of the discourse that we would previously find in the outer boroughs of the internet, like on 4chan or the far-right QAnon segment, creeping into the mainstream GOP. And it's an alarming development, I believe, because the QAnon element tends toward political violence. There's a potential here for something that is very disturbing.
Brandon, what's your take on that in terms of this sort of conspiracy stuff being put out there by people who ran for the nomination, and then it all gets amplified in sort of that MAGA Republican media ecosystem as well?
And this is also turning the issue on its head, right? Because a lot of this info ops, psyop stuff comes from accusations of Russian influence on the American election and American influence on Russian influence on the position of the war in Ukraine. So, and some people were suggesting the Tucker Carlson interview the other day with President Putin is the biggest information operation in history. So in some ways, they're speaking to what they've already been accused to. And that's kind of why you're seeing this language, this DOD language of a info psyop, because it's already been in the discourse and they've already been accused of it from the angle of Russia. So they're just pointing right back at the cultural milieu to kind of stir up trouble.
So Brian Donovan, Taylor Swift she's stuck her toe a little bit in partisan politics to some degree, like never gotten really, says she regretted not endorsing Hillary Clinton in 2016, did come out for Biden in 2020, but she's at a different level of fame right now. And in 2023, she encouraged Americans to register, to vote on National Registration Day, and tens of thousands of people, went and followed her advice. If she gets dragged into this and becomes a big target, does she have the potential to sway a state, sway the country, sway the election? I mean, what is the potential for her influence here should the Republicans force her to be front and center in this campaign?
As popular as she is, I think it's easy to overstate how influential she'll be. The folks that are already going to vote for Biden might not be persuaded by a Taylor Swift endorsement. I think her political power lies in her get out the vote message.
Right.
I also think she has a power through her music, challenging the sexual double standard, empowering women. I think if we think about politics more broadly than voting, I think that's really where her political power lies.
So Brandon Valeriano, on that point, right, we've seen in off-cycle elections and state-level elections when a lot abortion rights, reproductive rights, a lot of things that motivate women, especially young women, to vote. When those have been front and center, it's hurt Republicans. It's cost them certain races. What do you see the potential influence of the overlap of those particular issues and obviously the makeup of the Swifties in U.S. politics potentially?
Yeah, and the thing is that elections are often about micro-targeting now. It's about the minutia that you need to dive into. And if Taylor Swift can increase turnout in certain areas, Democratic turnout in certain areas, if she can activate women on certain issues, this is really what the GOP fears. They're speaking, they're giving voice to the fears that are deep, deep, deep in their hearts, that the women and young voters will not come out to support former President Trump. And we've seen that from polls, that a recent poll was released the other day that women are going to go for Biden 65 to 35%. And that's kind of indicative of the current trend. And that's what they fear.
Celebrities get dragged into politics, reluctantly in some cases. But, the Republicans have embraced Kevin Sorbo, who was Hercules, Scott Baio, who was Chachi, Clint Eastwood, is in there, but nobody of the magnitude of someone like Taylor Swift, at least in terms of fame and reach. Are there examples where, Brandon, where celebrity can influence an election in a big way? I mean, outside, I guess, Ronald Reagan winning in 1980?
There's not a lot of great examples. Oprah maybe swung towards Obama at the tune of 1 million voters, but he won by 7 million voters. So really, it's about the microdynamics, like I suggested. Like maybe she may be able to have an effect in Tennessee. Maybe there's something she can do in the South. But beyond that, this election is long since decided by many, many people, and it won't really change much from the past election. The best predictor of a future election is a past election. So things probably won't change much.
Brian Donovan, do you share that analysis, even with maybe motivation, a get out the vote sort of effect from this sort of thing? Or is it just the influence of celebrities is just limited because people vote based on other things?
I think it's limited, and I think that we should be careful what we wish for when we hope that our favorite celebrity is going to endorse our favorite politician, because the outcome can be unexpected, and celebrities are good at many things, but often they lack that political polish. They lack that language of politics and activism. And so there can be unintended consequences of celebrities getting involved in politics.
Okay, that's a very good point, and that's what we're going to end it on. Brian Donovan, Brandon Valeriano, thank you so much for your time, guys.
Thanks, David.